If this world truly is a gigantic prison, what will happen to us? Arthur Schopenhauer, a 19th century philosopher, observed the extent of the suffering humans endure and concluded that our true goal is not to pursue happiness and joy, but to alleviate the pains that are inherent in existence. Viewed through the harsh lens of Schopenhauer's philosophy, this world resembles a gigantic prison. We do not choose to be here, nor can we leave until our term ends, or until we decide to end it ourselves. We're confined by the walls of time, each passing day bringing us closer to death. Within this tight confinement, we often experience streams of suffering, tragedy, anxiety, and misery. We strive to move from one pleasure to another only to temporarily alleviate the pain. In this process, creatures on earth, governed by what Schopenhauer calls the will to live, prey on each other in the struggle for survival, only to prolong their miserable existence a little longer. Like gangs in prison, species in the world are caught up in an endless struggle for dominance. Eat or be eaten seems to be the law of nature, as certain plants and animal species exist only as food for others, while those species cannot withstand the destruction caused by humans. Conversely, humans, while exploiting their own members and depleting resources in their habitats, become victims of diseases or disasters. When we draw back the veil of illusion and confront the harsh reality of life, we may begin to doubt, as Schopenhauer did, the idea that, I quote, "This world is the successful work of an all-wise, all-perfect, and all-powerful being." End of quote. For Schopenhauer, the world is filled with suffering and devoid of any trace of divine grace. His view suggests that the world resembles more of a penal colony than a creation of a divine being. Now, viewing the world as a prison seems to lead to personal misery. Why not apply a more positive, hopeful perspective? Why look at it with such pessimism? However, Schopenhauer's idea has a twist. In his pessimistic worldview, there is a perspective that could bring great benefit to humanity. Based on the essay On the Sufferings of the World, this video explores Schopenhauer's pessimistic view of life and reveals the secrets that can be gleaned from it. Schopenhauer asserts that, contrary to the thoughts of many, it is not pleasure, but rather pain that is the positive factor of existence. He argues that evil is what makes its existence felt, and in that way is positive. On the other hand, what is good is negative. It simply consists in the removal of disturbance. The state of happiness and contentment is nothing but a desire satisfied or the cessation of some pain. It is precisely the experience of pain that is the origin of our desires and needs. For example, hunger is an uncomfortable state, potentially becoming painful, that makes us crave food. So, eating is not truly a positive experience. It is only deemed enjoyable because it alleviates hunger, a desire stemming from pain or a sense of deprivation. According to Schopenhauer, pain outweighs pleasure in this world. In fact, the pleasure we anticipate often fails to satisfy as much as we think, while pain often proves much more intense. We need only observe the scene of one animal eating another and compare the sense of pleasure in eating with the pain of being eaten to clearly see which one carries greater emotional weight. Schopenhauer not only calls life a sequence of disappointments, but also a deception. Overall, life becomes more painful as we age, as we must face one tragedy after another, while health declines and death draws nearer. Although life may start as an adventurous journey full of excitement, hope, and ideals when we are young, gradually those hopes seem to fade away as we face harsh realities. Our lofty beliefs often crumble, leaving us disappointed and in pain as life presents challenges that are not easy to overcome. We must confront uncertainty, betrayal, a sense of inadequacy, physical pain, and even spiritual loss. In the end, we come to realize that life is not always as beautiful as a painting, and happiness is not eternal and faces difficult challenges. The perfect house, a large bank balance, or a colorful social network cannot compensate for the pain and difficulties we encounter. Earth, a land full of chaos, is this very thing. Even if we can achieve our dreams and satisfy our desires, this may only lead to boredom, as happiness seems to be something never attainable and satisfying enough. Schopenhauer's view of the world is not for optimistic souls. He sees life as a burden, a consequence of mistakes and sins that we must endure. He believes that life would be better if we did not have to face pain and suffering. If we dare to imagine, especially to imagine deeply, the extent of suffering, pain, and misery that the sun shines into life, we will realize that life would be much better if on earth, as on the moon, the sun did not cause the upheavals of life, and if everything here and there remained as peaceful as the crystalline surface. Schopenhauer compares us to sheep in a pasture, under the watchful eye of the butcher, who determines their fate, deciding who will be the next prey. Helpless before our fate, we can only wait, imprisoned by life, waiting for the next misfortune to strike. Some choose to escape the vortex of suffering by fleeing early. Others continue their accustomed ways, seeking solace in enjoying small pleasures. Thus, we may use alcohol to forget past sorrows and immerse ourselves in amusements to keep worries about impending misfortunes at bay. From the perspective of a prisoner, we sit, observe, contemplate, and seek acceptable ways to alleviate pain. Though it may seem grim, this is the truth that Schopenhauer wants us to accept. He emphasizes, if you want a reliable compass to guide you through life and dispel any doubts about the accurate view of it, there is no better way than to cultivate the habit of seeing this world as a prison, a punishment for mankind. When observing around, we seem to be surrounded by competition, lack of tolerance, and even hatred among individuals and groups. Life is challenging enough, and on top of that, we often contribute to making it more difficult for each other. Instead of being a source of encouragement and support, we have become sources of suffering for one another. Forgiveness for the wrongdoing of others often becomes scarce. We often hate our enemies because they have caused us suffering and tend to criticize the wrongdoers excessively. But perhaps this enmity has been misplaced, as ultimately we all share the same tragic fate, living and being human in a world full of difficulties and bearing resemblances to a prison. We are all flawed individuals. We belong to a community, and we all have to take responsibility for our own mistakes as well as those of others. Indeed, the errors we condemn today may never have existed if we had not experienced and committed wrong actions in the past. Our faults often lie deep within our nature, and if something digs deep, they will surface, as we see in others today. If we embrace this perspective and acknowledge that we all share the same array of worries, anxieties, pains, and restlessness, because we are part of the same wretched reality, then we can adjust our expectations accordingly. The mishaps are often considered bad, are not unusual or unexpected, but rather a logical consequence of existence based on unhappiness. For example, when we encounter rudeness from others, perhaps we can imagine the hardships they have endured in life. and we can understand the reasons behind their rudeness, not taking it personally. They are prisoners just like us, awaiting the next beatings from the guards and ultimately execution. Therefore, if they don't strive to overcome the difficulties in life, it's not always possible for humans to behave at their best. Alongside acceptance, Schopenhauer points out that his pessimistic view opens up the opportunity for deep contemplation. This is miraculous. Empathy is the extraordinary power that helps us understand and share the suffering and difficulties of others. Faced with the misery of life and the reality that no one chooses their fate, we may believe that empathy is the answer for anyone entering this rehabilitation camp. Moreover, Schopenhauer believed that empathy towards fellow beings is an essential part of happiness. From empathy, we are willing to help each other, accept each other's imperfections, and create a more harmonious environment. We choose to see each other not as enemies, but as empathetic beings, as Schopenhauer referred to as those who share suffering together. I quote, "This may seem strange, but it reflects truth. It sheds light on others accurately, and it reminds us of the core virtues in life: tolerance, patience, respect, and love for our neighbors. These are qualities that everyone needs, and therefore we should all be grateful for our fellow human beings."